I just completed a typical bounty mission for the Trackers Alliance faction, and on my way out, I happened to spot another facility in the distance. According to the scanner, it was another watchtower listening post. I got really excited about exploring things in Starfield again, for several reasons. Most prominent was the recent watchtower creation by Kingath, which adds new POIs among other new features. While making my way over to this new location, something special happened. This wasn't the usual watchtower base I'd gotten used to raiding. This listening post was already in ruin and under attack by spacers. Most of the normal chests full of loot were empty, the machines reduced to scrap, the fallen corpses picked clean, and after nearly 500 hours of dealing with generic spacers in vanilla Starfield, it was in this one single instance that I actually understood them as a faction. Of course, I thought to myself, they're vultures. I think I get it now. After a crushing defeat by myself and a collection of new allies, the Watchtower faction was down bad. I almost felt sorry for them, but I also loved to see it. Something significant I did in-game had a noticeable effect on the universe. To put it bluntly, the Watchtower mod by Kingath showcases just how much Starfield is suffering from an identity crisis. Even though the Watchtower enemy faction remains a mysterious, clandestine group, I understand who and what they are. I can't say the same for the Ecliptic Mercenaries or the Crimson Fleet, aside from some flavor text and lip service. They're the exact same enemy NPCs in practice, right along with the Varun Zealots. There's nothing special or unique about any of them. Outside of very specific missions and quests, the Crimson Fleet enemies will never be doing anything that the Spacers or Ecliptic Mercenaries won't be. They're all the same generic NPCs, occupying the same abandoned bases in different uniforms. The same goes for the law enforcing factions. There's nothing special or unique about any of them, outside of very specific storyline missions. Compare these generic enemy types to the Watchtower faction, and you'll notice a huge difference. Watchtower faction has a clear and recognizable identity. There's numerous, tangible things that are uniquely special about them. Imagine you're a former employee of Argos Extractors who's quickly come up in the world, or better yet, the universe. You go from a humble asteroid miner to having talented pilots on your team like Sarah Morgan and Amelia Earhart. Both are talented girl bosses, and both are designated to working at a resource outpost in Aquila. The obvious thing to do is put them both behind a cockpit, right? Unfortunately, that's not a feature that vanilla Starfield provides without using mods. It doesn't matter how much you might want to defend Starfield, not being able to allow Amelia Earhart to pilot her own spaceship is just plain criminal.
I'll handle that. Here.
Oh, you could easily find 10 spaceships, but you can't get 10 pilots that you've hired to fly them for some reason. Pilots pilot, explorers explore, law enforcement enforces the law. Why do I need mods for these obvious things to be realized in Starfield? I don't recall putting a single criminal behind bars, like ever. The only criminal any faction ever insinuated should be locked up managed to escape our clutches. And lucky him, the number of times I've had to report back to HQ that an attempted arrest ended in violence, because there's no other option, is too numerous to count. The moral compass of the settled systems is all over the place. So we're left with killer cops and passive aviators, yet NPCs will always lecture you about right and wrong. How nuanced and exciting. Yay. Want to fix a bit of this problem? Well, in comes Watchtower mod to the rescue with its fleet command feature, offering players the ability to give any NPCs with piloting skills jobs that actually make sense. This addition by the mod author is but one of many question marks Starfield's devs leave me with every time I boot up the game. Why is X obvious popular space feature not in the base game, when the overall experience would have dramatically benefited from its inclusion? I'm still wondering till this day what exactly my $70 paid for. How is there still no spacewalking after the recent updates? Wasted potential seems to be pretty lore accurate in and outside of this game. Anyway, after mostly completing the Watchtower content, I did some more exploring, and to my surprise, I was actually having a great time. That was, of course, with the help of even more paid mods, Forgotten Frontiers 1 and 2. Forgotten Frontiers proves to me without a doubt that Starfield absolutely needs to increase its points of interest by an absurd amount. The illusion of exploration could actually work here, but an unreasonable amount of effort would need to be applied to do so. I have as much faith in Bethesda addressing this issue as I did them having something to present at the Xbox showcase. To me, this is honestly starting to mirror a toxic relationship, where one person's already checked out, and the other's the last person to know. Look, Starfield loyalists, it's okay to admit that you went to the fancy restaurant with hope in your heart, ready to have a meaningful conversation about how to fix things, and you got stood up. Happens to the best of us. The most important part is deciding how to move forward. At this point, at least for me, I don't really care who fixes Starfield. I don't care if it's Kingath. I don't care if it's Hajimir. I don't care if it's Mad Monkey 119 or Zone 79. I don't even care if it's Bethesda themselves. At the very least, I know that somebody's up to the task, and Starfield will eventually be the game it always had the potential to be, one way or another. Thank goodness. The only difference to me, depending on who ends up fixing the game, will ultimately decide if I purchase The Elder Scrolls 6 or any other future Bethesda titles from this point on. But we'll all just have to wait and see about that.